Now, ever since the Galaxy S23 has been released, many of us have been concerned as to whether or not we should get the iPhone 14 Pro Max or the Galaxy S23 Ultra. And in this video, I'm going to break down what each phone is good at based on various stages of use so that you guys can get an idea of which phone is actually right for you. Now, the Galaxy S23 Ultra and iPhone 14 Pro Max are two phones that have a lot in common, while also still having many differences that make each of them stand out. They both have amazing hardware complemented with a signature look. They both have top tier displays that are smooth and filled with vibrance. Both have really good batteries that can last you all day even with heavy use, and both can truly give you an amazing experience. And even looking at them from an individual standpoint, there are some things that each phone was better at. The iPhone 14 Pro Max has a better and smoother ecosystem, more software updates which results in longevity, and arguably the best camera in the game. And the S23 Ultra had many valuable advantages as well. It has more features all across the board, it has the signature S Pen, and it has the best display that I've ever seen on any other phone. So even though both of these phones had many things that were good, they both had their downsides when it came to many different things, and we will be taking a look into what each has to offer so it can help you make a decision on which one is actually worth it. So I will be comparing the S23 Ultra and iPhone 14 Pro Max based on 5 different categories, starting with display, battery, software, speakers, and last but not least, cameras. Now, the Galaxy S23 Ultra has amazing build quality. It has Gorilla Glass Victus 2 along with smooth materials, but just like every other phone out there, it can get chipped, scratched, and cracked. So I know that a lot of you guys are looking for that extra protection, and that's why I want to give a special shout out to my partners, ESR. Now, ESR is a company that specializes in making premium cases that provide not only an amazing look but also top tier protection. And right here I have some amazing cases that provide safety, style, and many other essential features. Now, ESR's clear case allows you to show off the color of your S23 Ultra. It offers military grade drop protection, and it's engineered to resist yellowing unlike a lot of other clear cases. Now, the classic kickstand case provides a premium kickstand that is built to last while also being well leveled so that you can enjoy watching movies and shows at home or on the go. And it also has a very stylish look that stands out amongst the crowd. And last but not least, we have the Shock Armor kickstand case that's made for those who want extreme protection. It has a premium kickstand that still provides excellent level. It fully supports wireless charging, and it has a really great look that'll add personality to your S23 Ultra. And if you want to protect your S23 Ultra all around, ESR also has camera lens protectors that'll deflect scratches and cracks from your lens. And if you like any of these ESR accessories, you can find a link down in the description and comment section of today's video. And again, I want to thank ESR for providing excellent protection to my S23 Ultra. Now, looking at display, the S23 Ultra has a 6.8-inch dynamic AMOLED display, and the iPhone 14 Pro Max has a 6.7-inch Super Retina XDR display. And I must say that both are very impressive. The combination of brightness, resolution, color, and sharpness makes them stand out as top tier displays. Whenever I'm scrolling through my S23 Ultra and iPhone 14 Pro Max, it looked very nice. Everything looked good. The responsiveness was very precise, and I had no complaints about the overall feel of both phones. But I will say that in terms of sharpness and speed, the S23 Ultra wins due to Apple having slower animations. Now, the S23 Ultra and 14 Pro Max have a 120Hz refresh rate. Scrolling through the OS and many different apps felt as smooth as ever. And when comparing each phone's refresh rate, I will say that it's personal preference. If you want a smoother, more easygoing feel, the 14 Pro Max wins. But if you want a very quick and snappy smooth feel, the S23 Ultra wins. Both displays can also drop down to a lower refresh rate whenever they need to preserve battery life. So if you're someone who wants the extra battery life and doesn't care about 120 at all, both phones support this function. The 14 Pro Max and S23 Ultra's bezels are extremely small. Right here, you can see that they're wrapped nicely around the screen and are very clean. The S23 Ultra's bezels are definitely more slim, especially since it has a slightly curved screen, so you'll get more screen real estate on the S23 Ultra. And now when it comes to brightness, the S23 Ultra is at 1750 nits and the 14 Pro Max is at 2000 nits, which is really good, but when comparing them in real life, the 14 Pro Max was definitely the brightest. Another thing that I peeped was that the 14 Pro Max's whites were more rich as well, while the S23 Ultra gives off a cool tone. And unlike the iPhone 14 Pro Max, something that I didn't like about the S23 Ultra's display was the facial recognition. When comparing both to each other, I would easily say that the 14 Pro Max wins. It's faster, works better at night, and it also works better no matter the position of your face. But something that I do like more on the S23 Ultra is the fact that the on-screen fingerprint sensor works. This is my preferred method when unlocking my phone, and unfortunately it was something that the 14 Pro Max didn't have. Now, the resolution and viewing experience of the S23 Ultra and 14 Pro Max's display is an amazing benefit when it comes to consuming media and playing video games. Gaming was something that I did a ton of when using both phones, and I would say that when it comes to looks, the S23 Ultra has slightly better graphics. The S23 Ultra also handled games with a little less lag, but to be honest, both phones are damn near even when it comes to gaming, so you can't go wrong with either. I was also able to see everything very clearly when watching videos. I preferred the S23 Ultra since it had a bigger screen and boxier frame, but that's just my personal preference, and I want to give you guys an idea of what both phones look like when watching something and playing a game.
Inside the 20. Boy, he almost got tripped up early.
Now remember when I said the S23 Ultra has more features? Well, the S Pen is a software and hardware addition that's pretty damn good. The responsiveness and palm rejection is great. It comes with many cool features, and it can be helpful whenever I'm signing contracts on my phone, but if I'm being honest, I don't really use it on a daily, and I feel like many people can do without it, so it's really based on preference. And also, I wouldn't say it gives the S23 Ultra a leg up when compared to the 14 Pro Max. Now, the S23 Ultra has a 5000 mAh battery compared to the 14 Pro Max's 4300 mAh battery, and even though there might be a nicely sized difference on the spec sheet, both phones were able to give me all day battery life, but the S23 Ultra's battery was definitely better. And mind you, I'm the type of person that is usually on my phone all day doing things like writing scripts, planning B-roll, shooting videos, scrolling through social media, watching YouTube videos, and many other things that can result in high usage. And I'm usually getting over 8 hours of screen time a day on the S23 Ultra and 7 hours on my 14 Pro Max, and I only charge both phones when I go to sleep. I don't cut any corners. I always have 5G on. No auto brightness, I maxed out the resolution, and I never use any power saving modes, so I was extremely impressed. Even when I was gaming, the battery hurt the 14 Pro Max a little bit more, and something that I did admire about the S23 Ultra was that no matter what I would do on it, I was always getting over a day of battery life. And if I could give a quick estimate, I would say that my battery on the S23 Ultra is about 10 to 20% more when compared to my 14 Pro Max's battery, but if you want a battery that will last you all day, you really can't go wrong with either. Now, the last thing that I wanted to touch on when it came to battery was the charging. I used a 45 watt fast charger for my S23 Ultra and a 30 watt fast charger for my 14 Pro Max, and my S23 Ultra was able to charge from 0 to 100% in under an hour, and with the 14 Pro Max it would take a little longer, but they both really didn't have me waiting too long. So if you find yourself in a situation where you forgot to charge your phone by the time you get done showering or running an errand, both phones will definitely be at least over 70%, which is pretty good for me. Now, looking at software, the S23 Ultra supports Android 13 and is supported by One UI 5.1. The 14 Pro Max is on iOS 16, and so far in terms of smoothness and bugs, the S23 Ultra is easily winning in this category. But overall, when it comes to software, it's genuinely personal preference. The iPhone has better social media integration, FaceTime, iMessage, and is complemented with a simplistic style. And the S23 Ultra has more features, more customization, and a more advanced feel. Some people love simplicity, some people love more freedom and features, but I personally love what each has to offer and the different experiences that they give. Now, the always on display on the S23 Ultra was much more customizable than the 14 Pro Max. I liked using social media on my iPhone more. I liked answering emails and anything business related on my S23 Ultra, and I love the different built-in apps that each software had to offer. And in terms of software sleekness, the S23 Ultra was the clear winner. Samsung phones are typically very sharp when it comes to optimizing software, and Apple's iOS 16 did come with some bugs that are still being ironed out. I also loved how I felt like every bit of the S23 Ultra's screen was used. There was no dead space, and Samsung didn't just blow up everything on the screen and make it bigger like the 14 Pro Max does. It truly feels like the software is meant for a screen this big. I also decided to test out some games on the S23 Ultra and 14 Pro Max. I played Asphalt 9, which is a game that can really test out the chip, and as you can see, both of them held up very well and I didn't get any lags. Now, something else that I wanted to touch on was the haptics. The S23 Ultras were used much more whenever I back out of an app, took out my S Pen, and did many other things. The haptics made it feel even more premium. One thing that I will say though is that the 14 Pro Max vibrated harder than the S23 Ultra whenever I got a text message, and I missed less notifications on it. And now the final thing that I want to note was that the S23 Ultra will be getting 4 years worth of software upgrades, while the 14 Pro Max will be getting 5 to 6 years. So when it comes to longevity, the 14 Pro Max will last longer in terms of software. Now, both the S23 Ultra and 14 Pro Max has some really good speakers that were very loud whenever I used them. I will usually use them in the house whenever watching videos on social media or YouTube, and I didn't have to turn them all the way up because of how loud they were on the lower tiers of volume. But if we are comparing, the S23 Ultra speakers are better overall. they have more bass, the sound quality is better, and they're a little louder, so when it comes to comparing both speakers, the S23 Ultra is the winner. I also tested out the S23 Ultra and 14 Pro Max as my alarms, and I had no problem waking up from them. Both did the job, and when it comes to phone calls and notifications, both phones are pretty much great. And right here, I'm going to give you guys an idea of how each of the speakers sound.
Bryant trying to get on track. Hits and a foul. Bryant for another three. And they ran the play.
Now the Galaxy S23 Ultra has a 200 megapixel main camera, along with a 10 megapixel telephoto and periscope telephoto, and finally a 12 megapixel ultra wide. And the iPhone 14 Pro Max has a 48 megapixel main camera, along with a 12 megapixel telephoto, ultra wide, and selfie camera. And for this category, I kind of want to let you guys judge more, since camera quality varies from person to person. Now starting with zoom modes, both phones had a couple of different zoom modes. The S23 Ultra definitely had more, but I wanted to show how each did so you can see the quality, and I found all of the zoom modes to be great when compared to other smartphones. Now the shutter speed on the 14 Pro Max is much better. I decided to test this out by shooting a moving car, and as you can see, the 14 Pro Max was not only able to shoot more shots, but it was also able to get them very clean, while the S23 Ultra took much less shots. Now next up, I want to show you guys how the camera performed in different environments, and the first environment that I will be starting with is daytime. Now looking at outside photos, the selfies on the S23 Ultra were good, but couldn't capture my skin tone well. I definitely prefer taking selfies on my 14 Pro Max. Also, the sharpness on my face could be too much sometimes on the S23 Ultra, where the sharpening isn't overtaking the photo. I also took some photos of random street objects, the sky, different aspects of nature, and I can honestly say that both phones held up very well in these environments, and I'm really impressed since both of them had many different things to offer as well. Now taking a look at inside photos, both phones were able to capture everything very nice, and I found both cameras to be slightly less aggressive than the outside pictures in terms of sharpness. And now when it comes to shooting video, the 14 Pro Max and S23 Ultra were really great, but I will say based on my use with each, the 14 Pro Max is better. You have many different modes and frame rates to choose from, but I prefer to shoot my videos in 4K at 30 frames per second because not only does it look good in 4K, but the 30 frames makes it look realistic, and I feel like the 14 Pro Max captures it much better. The video stabilization on both phones were really good. I prefer to shoot my videos with my iPhone, so whenever I'm shooting my subject, I can use everything handheld, and the movements will be very smooth, which was very impressive. And for fun, I decided to try out the stabilization on both phones, and if I'm being honest, they both were amazing, but I still prefer my iPhone since the quality was better. So all in all, I would definitely say that the S23 Ultra and 14 Pro Max have really good cameras that'll give you some consistently good shots. So if you're someone who wants to shoot content or you just want a solid camera, I would say the 14 Pro Max is better, but overall they're both really good. So here's the final question. Which phone is better, the Galaxy S23 Ultra or the iPhone 14 Pro Max? Well, in my personal unbiased opinion, I would say that the Galaxy S23 Ultra is not only better than iPhone 14 Pro Max, but it's also better than any other phone in the US market. It basically has everything that you would want in a great phone. Great display, great software, great ecosystem, great battery, and I really haven't had this much satisfaction with a phone in a long time, and I don't see many other flagships competing. So if you are someone who does prefer the S23 Ultra, it's a phone that you'll be satisfied with. The 14 Pro Max is also a great phone as well, but this year, the S23 Ultra is just better. But there it is, my comparison between the iPhone 14 Pro Max and the Galaxy S23 Ultra. Now let me know down in the comments, which phone do you guys think is best for you? And also if you agree or disagree with my opinion, let me know why. And I'm gonna see you guys in the next one. Peace.